Exactly what we got. We got Nicholas Davis with Kiki Cord at 10-2-1. Cody Killer Kowalski with Affinity at 11-2. Very nice, gentlemen. And do not send Patrick an email.
And this is a matchup I would have anticipated we would see a ton of coming into the weekend. Very little of these respective decks in day 2. I think 3 copies of Kiki Cord and 0 copies of Abzan Company, which is kind of the analog to this deck, and only 2 copies of Affinity.
Well, here is Affinity. The Darksteel Citadel, Welding Jar, Springleaf Drum as we are underway here in round number 14 of 15. Nicholas Davis with an Overgrown Tomb, a Raging Ravine, and now a Wall of Roots. So a good start here for Nicholas. For Cody, he's going to have to be a little more explosive, do something that Affinity actually does, which is put a lot of creatures on the battlefield very quickly.
And flying's at a premium in this matchup too, because Kiki Cord, like most decks in this space, very good at gumming up the ground, Wall of Roots, Kitchen Finks, all those kind of cards. So Vault Scourge, very important here for Kowalski.
The Signal Pest, not a flyer exactly, but it still counts. Can only be blocked by flying creatures and creatures with reach. So we head over to Nicholas Davis and his Seattle Seahawks jersey. A Russell Wilson fan, it appears. It's a good start for the Kiki Cord deck. You want to have some sort of mana accelerant to get the ball rolling. I think a lot of the times, given my conversations with Jeff Hoagland, you want to be a bird of paradise, but this will work just fine.
He's got mana acceleration, and so far from the Affinity deck, none of the critical payoff cards in Cranial Plating or Arcbound Ravager. Also, the way that Kowalski is developing his board here, the 1 copy of Orzhov Pontiff in Davis's deck would be a disaster. And he has a route to build up towards it if he can find Court of Calling.
Orzhov Pontiff is fantastic against Affinity and would be very good in this situation, be it just having it normally in hand, finding it with a Court of Calling or a Collected Company. So, we'll see what happens here for our Kiki Cord player. There's a Wall of Omens. That'll draw a card. It's like, may have found, I believe, a Fulminator Mage. There's a Scavenging Ooze, but a counter on that Wall of Roots there. One of the things about Kiki Cord is they can play so many different silver bullets because of the Court of Callings that are in their deck, and most of them are just good, natural, normal draws.
They all have their spots, and a lot of them are 2 or 3 mana cards, which means that you can find them off of Court of Calling, and even if they aren't good bullets for the matchup, you can find it off of Collected Company, and even if you're not using Collected Company, all the cheap creatures facilitate larger Court of Callings down the line. So the bullets are for particular matchups or a particular range of matchups, but drawing them individually is rarely the end of the world.
Kowalski has found a land here in Blinkmoth Nexus, so that's land number 2. Going to add some mana. It looks like maybe a Massive Ethereum on the way, and it is. So now Vault Scourge is a little bit larger. It will attack for 2 lifelink in the air. And Davis is going to lose 2 life. Kowalski will gain 2, so 15-20 is how things should settle down at the end of this turn. And the Master of Ethereum is pretty large as it's the number of artifacts that are on the battlefield. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right now. So a 6/6 Master of Ethereum. Back to Nicholas Davis, we're going to go. We'll see if his Kiki Cord deck can power out something good here. He does have a copy of Court of Calling in hand. You will find some timely spot removal in the deck as well with 4 main deck copies of Path to Exile, and Davis will just pass the turn back. Back to Kowalski we will go. For Cody, a Thought Cast the draw. Not a card you see a lot in Affinity anymore.
Nope. I mean, a lot of that's just a function of the colored mana situation not being that sharp with the deck. I mean, you want to be as colorless mana focused as possible.
Back in the day, that was an immediate 4 of.
Yes. But you had access to Seat of the Synod.
Yep. Playing a lot more Glimmer Voids then, too.
Yep.
This particular version that Kowalski is playing, he does have 3 Glimmer Voids in 1 island. Mox Soul Pool, Springleaf Drum, stuff like that to be able to tap for blue, but the loss of Seat of the Synod does matter quite a bit. There's no chance those lands come back, right?
0%.
They're too good.
And they just represent a big long-term development constraint, too. All sorts of cards you can't print when those are floating around.
There's 4 mana. I'll make it 3, excuse me. Another copy of Master of Ethereum. Here come the Knuckleheads. Looks like Wall of Omens is going to block the Master of Ethereum. Vault Scourge looking to get through. I think we're going to see a Court of Calling here for, well, it doesn't even need to have Restoration Angel. He just has Restoration Angel right now. So we could actually maybe see him combo off here in just a moment.
I would imagine that that's what we're looking at here if Davis didn't even make an effort to get the Vault Scourge off the battlefield.
Yeah.
That could have been a free block right there, so I imagine he's got some pretty big plans.
Yeah, so long as Nicholas Davis does not actually draw Kiki Jiki this turn, I believe it should be over because he has enough to court for 5 right now. I guess he could just do it on his upkeep.
Yep.
To make sure that he doesn't draw Kiki Jiki, which is very smart. So you add a counter to Wall of Roots. This is going to be a chord for 5. I want to look at the top card of his deck. I want to know if the Kiki was there. It was not.
It's not super relevant. I mean, the right play is the right play.
Oh, he's making the right play. I'm just, I got to know.
Yeah.
I got to know, that's all.
You want to know if this is one of the 2% of the time roughly that matters?
Yeah, where the Kiki is actually going to be your draw step. Kiki is going to copy Restoration Angel a bunch. That's an infinite damage loop, and Nicholas Davis is going to win game number 1 here over Cody Kowalski. Kiki Cord up a game very quickly against Affinity. We turn to the sideboard right now. We'll start with Kowalski, who's got a Thoughtseize, 2 Master of Ethereum, 1 Dismember, 2 Ancient Grudge, 2 Raptor's Cage, a Whip Flare, a Gearpow Aether Grid, Netch Champion, a Stubborn Denial, a Mountain, and 1 Chalice of the Void.
So I really like the 2 copies of Grafdigger's Cage in this matchup. Pretty naturally good against a lot of the stuff that Davis is up to over here. I can see having a little bit of the Stubborn Denial, Thoughtseize type of stuff to help break up the combo, but it's really easy to over sideboard with an Affinity deck. So I definitely want the Grafdigger's Cage, and I can get behind a little bit of the disruption, but I would not over sideboard here.
There's other things here for Nicholas Davis. He is up a game, and he's got some good ones to bring in. A Linvala, Keeper of Silence, a Reclamation Sage, a Sin Collector, a Fulminator Mage, an Eidolon of Rhetoric, a Phyrexian Revoker, a Kataki War's Wage, a Spell Sky to Burn, Conforge Tender, 2 Stony Silence, 2 Lightning Helix, and 2 Engineering Explosives. Some heavy hitters here from Nick.
2 copies of Stony Silence, a Reclamation Sage, a Phyrexian Revoker, and a Kataki are all great options here for Davis.
Now you can bring out some of the poorer cards, I guess you could say. You know, a card like Lone Missionary, maybe Eternal Witness a little too slow. Even Mind Sense you're not going to need in this matchup. Though flying is pretty nice, but he can make some pretty clean swaps, I think.
Yeah, I think it's pretty easy to get away from Wall of Omens, the Lone Missionary, as you mentioned, the even Mind Sensor, Fulminator Mage. There's a little bit of utility there, but it's not great in the matchup. It's a little bit slow, so Davis has some fairly easy cuts here.
So that gives you an idea what both players are working with here in their sideboards. Game number 2 will be underway here in just a moment, but we do want to turn your attention to Twitch, which is where you're watching this broadcast. You can join the feature match area right now and subscribe to be able to get an exclusive subscribers-only chat, custom emoticon and badges, and the newest addition, you get to decide the quarterfinals. So we're in round 14 right now. Round 15 will put a conclusion on the Swiss, and after that, we take exactly a 1 hour long break, and 30 minutes into that is when you can vote on the quarterfinals and what match you'll get to watch between the players and the decks. Those will all be on screen for you. You get to vote actually right in the Twitch chat. So if you do want to be able to do all of these things, only $4.99 a month, twitch.tv/SCG Live is where you're watching, and that's where you can become a subscriber and join our feature match area. So get ready here for game number 2. Now, Affinity not exactly very explosive that particular game, and as you mentioned, and I was a little surprised as well, only 2 copies of Affinity in a day number 2, you know, a pretty popular deck throughout Modern's history. You think anything's really affecting this deck to not really have it perform very well recently?
I think the Jeskai matchups are probably a challenge.
Okay.
And Grixis as well. We're seeing a lot of 3-color control decks. Some of it's fueled by Ancestral Vision, some of it's fueled by Nahiri, some fueled by both. And playing against, you know, Bolt plus Kolagon's Command main deck plus Snapcaster Mage is a challenge. Playing against Path plus Lightning Bolt plus Helix plus Nahiri is a challenge. There's just a lot more decks floating around now that are equipped to have the critical mass of removal necessary game 1 to have a good matchup against Affinity.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a thing that can happen where maybe Affinity adjusts to build their deck a little bit differently. Most versions that have been cropping up recently have been mostly blue-centric, so Master of Ethereum, Thoughtcast, Spell Pierces, and stuff like that. Maybe a little splash of black on the sideboard for a card like Thoughtseize. We haven't really seen kind of the Blood Moon, Galvanic Blast, Shrapnel Blast versions of Affinity. It feels like in a long time.
Yeah, I mean, we see a little bit of the blue, we see a little bit of the red, but we don't really see decks that are fully dedicated to be artifacts plus a full color. It's a little bit of a splash.
So I don't know. I've been surprised to see Affinity's lack of representation and really solid results over the past handful of weeks.
Yeah. Again, I think it's mostly just a function of how many decks are just equipped with a ton of removal that's either cheap or 2-for-1s in the first game. Affinity gets a lot of its edge from having a very good game 1 across the board. The sideboard games almost invariably get tougher because people have access to Ancient Grudge or other anti-artifact measures, but you're banking on a good game 1. If your game 1s aren't that good anymore because of these decks, then it's very hard to rationalize playing the deck.
Yeah, if Jeskai keeps showing up like it has been recently, especially with the addition of Nahiri and people are playing Electrolyzes like Peter Ingram is, then Affinity is in a pretty bad spot.
Yep. I still recommend Affinity as a deck to a lot of people, and I think that Mox Opal is the most powerful card that you're allowed to play in the format. So there's still something going for the deck, but A lot of the Game 1 matchups against the 3-color control decks have gotten much worse in recent months.
Well, we're going to find out if Cody Kowalski can actually put a Mox Opal draw together here. Actually kind of display some of the power that has brought him to an 11-2 record, as both players are going to keep their hands. Now you got an Inkmoth Nexus to start. There's a Mem Knight and just a passing of the turn, so not the most explosive start here for Kowalski. As we head back over to Davis, he's got a Rage of Verge Thickets, maybe. Hey, he should draw a card first. It's one of the better parts of being on the draw in Magic. Now we'll play Rage of Verge Thicket and a Birds of Paradise. To Kowalski we go, still Overseer with the draw. There's a Glimmer Void. There is the Overseer. And now here's an attack for 1.
Steel Overseer, very important card for Affinity and matchups that are about being big on the board and not beating a ton of removal spells. And that's exactly what this matchup is.
Feels like one of those matchups, that's for sure.
Steel Overseer is the type of card that's either an A or an F, depending on the matchup.
Yeah.
And this is one of the matches where it's an A.
Basic Forest here for Nicholas. See if Nicholas can actually find an answer to the Overseer. Again, he's got a lot of paths in his deck, 4 of them. We know he's got Stunning Silence, Kotaki after sideboard, Orzhov Pontiff, all that good stuff. There's a Wall of Roots. Here is Kotaki.
Okay,
Well,
that's a turn.
so things get a little interesting now as Kotaki has shown up. Now this used to be the end-all be-all against Affinity. This, Energy Flux, Esque Effects. But you know, the thing about Affinity now is there's a Dismember, is they don't have artifact lands anymore, so it's not, I mean, it's still good, obviously, because it's Kotaki, but it's not like, that big of a backbreaker anymore, I would say.
It's still fine to have, and there's some draws where it's very, very good against them, but it is not what it used to be.
At the beginning of the upkeep, Kotaki's effect does go into effect, so that doesn't leave. He does still have to pay 1 for these artifacts, even though he did kill it with Dismember on his upkeep.
Yeah, I'm guessing he saves the Steel Overseer and lets the Mem Knight go.
Yep. So Overseer a lot better than the old 0-mana 1/1, that's for sure. Now Kowalski will draw. An island is what he's found. Both good and bad. Finding an island's nice because, it's a land. But if he does get hit by a Path to Exile, that's his only basic, so he doesn't get to search for one.
Well, at this point, he probably has enough mana to function.
I think so. 3's quite a bit. So Kotaki has been handled there by Kowalski. He does have an active Steel Overseer. For Nicholas Davis, a Birds of Paradise, a Wall of Roots with 1 counter on it, a Forest, and a Razor Verge Thicket.
But it's still just taking Kowalski way too long to get on the offensive and pressure Davis here.
We haven't seen any of the Affinity-esque draws yet in these 1.5 games that we've watched. And pretty tame here for Kowalski. For Davis, quite a few options. The Kiki Core deck does have what feels like sometimes infinite options. Horizon Canopy in hand as a land. He has played a land, however, for the turn in a Windswept Heath. This might be a Lone Missionary, perhaps. It is, so he's going to gain 4 life. A little surprised to see that after sideboard.
I mean, the Affinity deck is the aggressor in the matchup, so you can kind of rationalize it that way, but it just doesn't seem like a very high-impact thing to be doing.
Well, the thing is, if it had flying, I'd love it.
Yeah, exactly.
But Affinity is a deck that is really in the air most of the time. Most of its creatures do have flying, like an Inkmoth Nexus or a Blinkmoth Nexus, Vault Scourge, Signal Pest, all that jazz.
Lone Missionary is likely to be good, or better at least, in games where Affinity is all on the ground. But your deck's already very well suited to play that kind of fight to begin with.
You got all those walls.
Yeah, I'm more interested in defending against the air, and that's where Lone Missionary doesn't really do anything.
Back over to Cody Kowalski, we're going to go. His 4th turn of the game. Looks like he has an Arcbound Ravager.
All right, now we got a little something going.
Yeah, it feels a little bit more like Affinity now. The follow-up is another Arcbound Ravager. Now we really got something going.
The problem here is that even with this, I mean, this is good, obviously, but it's still a pretty slow burn for him to start getting some real offense going, and he's at risk of just getting comboed out. It's not enough to be able to punch through the Wall of Roots of the world. You have to be able to race before the combo takes over.
That's always the scariest part. That said, something like Old Inkmoth Nexus could play a role here.
Yeah, that's the route here. Although Davis still has at least 1 chump block available up there with the Birds of Paradise.
Nicholas Davis does Sacrifice the fetch line, gets himself a Sacred Foundry on Cody Kowalski's end steps. Now we're going to head back Davis's way. He will untap and draw here in just a moment. Picked up a Plains. We know about the Wooded Foothills and Horizon Canopy in hand, so it does feel like he is flooding just a touch. And it might actually be a hand with 4 lands in it. Actually, Kowalski Pride Mage is one of those cards. That one actually matters quite a bit. He's going to start by sacrificing Horizon Canopy. Didn't get a great look. May have been a Restoration Angel, though. One thing we know about Affinity is it can beat a removal spell or two.
Yeah, Arcbound Ravager and Cranial Plating are easy workarounds to one removal spell.
Well, looks like Davis is going to pass the turn back. Feels like a Restoration Angel to me. A Steel Overseer is going to go active. He'll put a counter on all the artifact creatures there, so Steel Overseer becomes a little bit larger along with those Arcbound Ravagers. Now we head back Kowalski's way. Can he start punching through some relevant amount of damage, be it regular or infect? That's the question. The longer you let the Kiki Core deck sit around, the more time it has to set up an infinite combo you like we saw in the first game.
If Restoration Angel is on Kowalski's radar right now, I don't think he has a great attack this turn because he can put Wall of Roots in front of one of the Ravagers, Lone Missionary in front of the other. That forces the Steel Overseer, then Restoration Angel comes down. Not a whole lot is gained.
There's Massive Ethereum, making the robots even larger.
All right, that's the tipping point now where it's safe to attack with the Ravagers because with Master of Ethereum plus the Steel Overseer, there are 4/4s that powers through Restoration Angel, powers through a 0/4 Wall of Roots, and certainly the Bird and the Lone Missionary as well.
Pretty good spot to attack. That's what we're going to see happen here. Looks like Lone Missionary is going to jump in front.
And I would imagine this means that Davis's plan here is to Restoration Angel out the Lone Missionary to save his chump blocker, gain some life on the way out.
Steel Overseer is going to go active. Everything's going to get a +1/+1 counter over there for Cody Kowalski. Now note, as here's Restoration Angel, not much of a surprise there, of course. Going to blink out the Lone Missionary, which means Nicholas will get to gain 4 more life. He did not activate, did Kowalski, that Ink Moth Nexus. He's leaving that Mox Opal available for something, so maybe a card like Spell Pierce, Galvanic Blast, something in hand over there for the Affinity player.
Or it's possible that he wants the ability to activate the Nexus on Davis's turn if something happens to the Ravagers.
Okay. Over to Davis we go. Again, we know about the Kowalski Pride Mage in hand. But the Arcbound Ravagers do such a nice job of kind of trumping that effect. Here's the Wooded Foothills. Here comes the Pride Mage.
It was part of the reason that this deck was so hated in Standard. Oh, you've got a handful of artifact creatures. I've got a handful of Shocks and Shatters. What happens? Oh, you lose. No, your Shocks and Shatters do anything.
Your Shocks and Shatters are nonsense.
Yeah, that doesn't do anything.
Oh, I've lost many a game where I've cast a removal spell on turns 1 through 4, played a Molder Slug on turn 5, and I was not even close to winning.
That was my that was one of my most humiliating matches I ever played. Was at the Blot Pro Tour where Affinity was legal, and went turn 1, Electrostatic Bolt your play. Turn 2, Red Green Talisman Oxidize your play. Turn 3, Isochron's Scepter on Shatter you, and did not win that game.
Yeah, don't even get close.
Not even close. Not even close. It was at that point where I regretted my deck choice.
Yeah, that'll do it most times. Looks like another Master of Ethereum is here. So let's say all these creatures are a million of millions now.
Right.
They might as well be. And here comes the Master.
I'm going to go eyeball test here.
Okay.
Not lethal this turn, but lethal next turn.
All right.
Should you be doing the eyeball test in a game that requires so much fine mathematics skills? Maybe not. I'm just saying that's what I see right now.
That's just what I'm doing.
Right.
You know who shouldn't be doing the eyeball test? Nicholas.
Yeah, he has to figure it out here.
Nicholas has to figure it out. I would not be doing the eyeball test. Now, if we want to look at Master of Ethereum, the one that is attacking right now, well, it's going to count the number of artifacts that are in play. So we see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So at least a 7/7. You count the Steel Overseer count, that makes an 8/8. You count the other Master of Ethereum, that makes it a 9/9. And then if you count the Overseer activation for the turn, it makes it a 10/10.
Right. There's some awkwardness with Affinity when it comes to Arcbound Ravager and cranial plating / Master Ethereum, they're all drawing from the same well. They don't combo together all that well because they're all asking for artifact counts, and Ravager's asking you to sacrifice artifacts. So they don't work. They do work very well together, but in terms of generating lethal in one turn, they don't stack on top of each other very well.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how they kind of pull from the same well, as you mentioned. So Master Ethereum is going to get blocked because it's, it's gigantic. A Steel Overseer activation is going to put some more counters on all the creatures here. So Archon Ravagers will turn into even larger creatures. There'll be 6/6s right now, by the way. 4 counters is 4. Each Master Ethereum provides 1. So those are 6/6s that are going to be coming on through, it appears.
Now Davis can hold on here for a little while because the Kowalski Private Mage gives him an answer in case Kowalski wants to shove everything from the Ravagers onto one unblocked threat, and it also checks the Nexus as well. As long as Davis can keep the Restoration Angel in play and Kowalski doesn't have any interaction, he's still drawing to Kiki-Jiki or Court of Calling for Kiki-Jiki.
Yep.
So even though he's getting mashed on the battlefield right now, as long as he can keep Restoration Angel in play and enough mana and creatures to be able to Court for Kiki-Jiki or cast it should he happen to draw it, Davis is still drawing live at least.
Thing is, we're starting to get to the point now where one of Kowalski's creatures, if it gets through, will be lethal.
Right. That gets us back nicely to the eyeball test.
Ah, yes.
Not lethal this turn, but probably lethal next turn.
Very nice. I see the Wooded Foothills is going to search up a land here.
I think that Davis still has some breathing space because of the Kowalski Pride Mage. It just makes the various ways that Kowalski could generate lethal next turn much more challenging to execute. So he has a Chump Blocker and a Shatter on the table. That helps a lot.
Now for Davis, his hand is kind of nonsense, just 2 lands over there. You mentioned the Kowalski Pride Mage on the battlefield, the Restoration Angel, which can lead to the combo. He's going to have to draw a good one, though, because the Forest and the Plains are not going to help very much. So Davis is on tap. He'll take a draw step. And let's see what this yields him. Just another Wooded Foothills. That's not much help.
Well, the Wooded Foothills is not the worst, assuming there's another red duel. There is a mountain in the deck. What this allows him to do, before he needed the Birds of Paradise to be a third source of red mana to be able to cast Kiki-Jiki if he draws it, now with Wooded Foothills as the draw step, he can afford a chump block with Birds of Paradise. It's not awesome, obviously. It's not the best draw step in the deck, but having easy access to a third red mana is some help.
He'll play his Plains for the turn. And simply pass the turn back because no good attacks available. So back to Cody Kowalski we go. He'll untap those large Archbound Ravagers and Master Ethereums and draw a card. And we don't have a great look on what is in Kowalski's hand. That information is relatively hidden at this point. But I wouldn't say that his hand really needs a lot. He's got big creatures that he's trying to kill the opponent with. He will start with a Vault Scourge. Going to have to pay 2 life to cast it. Fall down to 14. And now fire up Inkmoth Nexus. And it's going to be one of these turns. You see Steel Overseer hide on to the back, which means it's going to be activating, I believe. Here come all the knuckleheads, including the Inkmoth Nexus. And this might actually give Kowalski the ability to actually present a lethal Inkmoth Nexus attack.
So now I'm trying to go through what Davis's blocks here are. I think he can afford to put Restoration Angel in front of the Nexus because the Steel Overseer only gets it to a 3/3. And if, excuse me, no, there's the Masters in play. So
yes,
that blocks off the table. Okay. Davis may just have to chump out here and use Kowalski Pride Mage.
Just to stay alive.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I think everything is lethal. I was going to say the best case scenario is put Restoration Angel in front of something where Restoration Angel survives. If Kowalski moves counters onto the Nexus to play over the top, then you have your Pride Mage at the ready to take it off. But if that's not the case...
Well, now we get to the spot now, right, where your hope is that Kowalski overthinks things, right?
Yep.
If you're Nicholas?
Well, this attack here, I suppose it's not lethal on the table just yet.
It's not lethal yet.
So Kowalski at least has to add something. No, yeah, he needs to add something to the Ravager.
Yeah, Ravager's a 7/7.
Right, so he can sacrifice the Opal, at least, and force the issue there.
You got to present lethal.
Yes. You got to force Davis to make some sort of move with the Pride Mage or whatever he's holding back in his hand.
You sack the Opal, sack the Overseer, sack the Vault Scourge. Maybe you want to leave the Opal to be able to bluff as though I have a Spell Piercer, Galvanic Blast, what have you. But I think making an attack that's going to put Nicholas Davis only down to 1 is not acceptable.
Especially when Davis is not doing anything with the Restoration Angel. I mean, he's saying, I'm trying to hold this back because this is my route to victory. If that's the case, you've got to force some sort of issue here because getting him to 1 is not going to be good enough.
You know, he's going to sacrifice an Arcbound Ravager. So that's going to put 5 counters over there for 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then base power is 10. So that's a lethal Inkmoth Nexus attack.
And this is a really nice play from Kowalski because if Davis shatters the Nexus, he can simply move them onto the Ravager.
Now he's going to sacrifice and take care of the Master of Ethereum. And we don't see a sacrifice to the Arcbound Ravager there, which is a little bit strange because now the Inkmoth Nexus isn't lethal. It's 1 short. And the Arcbound Ravager isn't lethal either. So that's going to be an attack for 6.
I mean, Davis's block here is basically I'm dead on board is his block. Kowalski's got to be playing around something here if he's not looking to shove.
Yep.
And if he only got Davis to 2, that means the Wooded Foothills is still alive to find red mana if he draws Kiki Chiki.
So 8 Infect. And okay, well, that makes it much more clear. If there's a Galvanic Blast in hand,
yeah, that's fine.
The way that Cody played that entire game was he was never tapping that Mox Opal.
Yep.
And you know, it kind of felt that okay, maybe he's got a Spell Pierce, maybe he's got a Galvanic Blast, something to be able to gum up the works, and he was able to find something to get the job done there in the Galvanic Blast.
Yep. Yeah, Kowalski there, I guess, is in a spot where he's saying, as long as one of my non-Nexus creatures connects, the Galvanic Blast is going to be lethal. So don't play into some weird tricks. The minute that Davis says, all right, I'm willing to take 4 or 5 points of damage, you just let it go and finish him off with the Galvanic Blast.
Sideboards here, again, you see the 1s and the 2s. Nicholas Davis will be on the play here for game number 3. I don't really think a lot changes player draw. You know, Nicholas is going to leave in his Kataki, his Stony Silence, maybe bring in the Lightning Helixes if they aren't already in. He's got some real haymakers. He actually drew one of them there in Kataki, but if any, he showed a bit of resiliency by being able to beat that card.
Well, Davis didn't have a route to the combo. He was just trying to hold off Kowalski by gumming up the board, and he couldn't answer Steel Overseer. And Steel Overseer in those kind of games is the most powerful card in Affinity. Davis never answered it, and that was kind of the whole deal.
On Kowalski's side, again, you're going to see the removal spells in Dismember because he needs to be able to kill both Restoration Angel in case a combo starts happening or a card like Kataki. Maybe we see a card like Whip Flare. You know, it can't kill Birds of Paradise and some of the utility creatures. It doesn't kill a card like Wall of Roots, though.
Yeah, I think Whip Flare is it's just too bad against too many of the draws. And, you know, Affinity is also a critical mass deck in its own way. It needs a certain density of artifacts to be able to do anything powerful. So that Whip Flare has to come at the expense of either an artifact or some other powerful spell. And like I said, I just don't know if it's reliable enough to be worth it.
Well, game number 3 going to be underway here between Kiki Court and Affinity in just a moment. But while we do have a second, we're going to talk about the StarCityGames.com weekly sale. That is almost over here, folks. So you only got just a little bit of time left to save on some select wholesale products on the website.
Yeah, a variety of lots, commons and uncommons, cycles of lands to help people get started playing Magic. Also, some of them can be fun to draft out of. That's on sale until Monday, 10:59 a.m. East Coast time. Every week there's a new sale on Star City Games starting Monday, 11 o'clock Eastern, so make sure to be checking back to the website regularly. And you are running out of time to take advantage of this sale. So if you're looking to pick up some wholesale lots yourself or someone looking to get involved in Magic, head over to StarCityGames.com right now.
Have our new sale up at 11 a.m. on Monday morning East Coast time, so be sure to check that out as well at StarCityGames.com as we get ready here for game number 3 between Nicholas Davis and Cody Kowalski. Nicholas Davis will be on the play with his Kiki Core deck.
Active player, turn 0, proceed to 5 additional turns.
Kiki Core deck with a decent amount of representation here, 3 copies in a day, number 2. A deck that Jeff Hoagland really put on the map during Season 1 of the SCG Tour and all the Modern events that he had so much success with that deck. For Affinity, well, we've known about this one since Modern started at Pro Tour Philadelphia back at the beginning of 2010. Though, again, a little surprised not to see much of this deck into day 2 or at all over the past handful of months, as here's a Birds of Paradise off of a forest. We're going to head back Cody Kowalski's way. Inkmoth Nexus into a Springleaf Drum. Into a Mox Opal. Does he have a 0 mana threat like an Ornithopter or a Memnite? Looks like the answer is no. So over to Davis we go. Nahiri the draw.
3 minutes.
There is Wall of Omens. Time for Davis to draw a card. Picked up a copy of Restoration Angel. Does he have land number 2? It looks like he does in Stomping Ground. Also has a copy of Windswept Heath. Stomping Ground on the battlefield, untapped. Down to 18 goes Davis. And now Noble Hierarch and a passing of the turn.
This would be one of those games that would be good for Whip Flare.
It wouldn't be a bad Whip Flare game, that's for sure. Inkmoth Nexus number 2 there for Kowalski. But does he have Whip Flare number 1? It doesn't look like he does.
Does look like he's got some Vault Scourges and an Arcbound Ravager. So that is a way to ignore Wall of Omens and similar cards.
Yeah, there are worse cards to have.
And so begins the Affinity Math puzzle.
Will the following players please report to side events?
There's an Arcbound Ravager.
That's artifact number 3 for the Opal,
Yep.
plus a creature for Springleaf Drum.
That is Josh Jacobo, Matthew
A Vault Scourge.
Rosenthal, and Tim Korber.
You have to pay 2 life for that. The follow-up. Might be another Vault Scourge, but it's actually going to be a Signal Pest. It's now Kowalski will pass the turn back over to Nicholas Davis. Davis will untap those 2 lands along with some mana accelerants. It's got access to at least 4 mana this turn, potentially 5. You can see the Windswept Heath in hand. Restoration Angel, Eternal Witness over there for Nicholas Davis. So some goodies.
So the last few players can make their way to their seats. The round will begin in 1 minute.
And Nahiri is a little bit interesting there as well, because Nahiri could come down on this battlefield, for example, and go after the Arcbound Ravager.
Yes.
And there might be some interest in Nicholas Davis's end to do that.
He does most likely lose the Nahiri on the follow-up attack. So the question is, from Davis' side, does he have enough resources left over to stabilize what Kowalski's leftovers are going to be?
There's a Phyrexian Revoker.
Standard classic players.
We'll see exactly what Revoker is naming. And he's going to go with Arcbound Ravager, which is a pretty good choice, all things considered.
And I like this play better than Nahiri on Arcbound Ravager because it just allows Davis to further gum up the works before playing his Planeswalker.
Now here's an Eternal Witness. Get back the Windswept Heath. He'll shuffle his deck from searching with the Windswept Heath previously in this turn and pass the turn back over to Cody Kowalski, who will untap and take a draw.
Now Kowalski has very little offense to speak of without the Arcbound Ravager.
Yeah, Ravager got shut down. There's Master of Ethereum. That'll at least make the creatures a little bit larger. Springleaf Drum. There's a Vault Scourge. So Master of Ethereum, as usual, is enormous. The Ornithopter is the final play and the last card in hand for Cody.
Nice.
Look, you got to draw it sometime. And it's even a 1-3.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much. Signal Pest Vault Scourge going to come across into the red zone. No flying blockers here currently for Nicholas Davis, so some damage will be dealt. Looks like 4. The Vault Scourge is a base 1-1. Master of Ethereum is going to make it grow a little bit, and then Signal Pest Battle Cry is 3, and then Signal Pest gets a little bit larger because of Master of Ethereum, so 4 damage will come across.
So Master of Ethereum now is Kowalski's payoff card
Yes,
now
it
that
is.
Ravager is shut down. And it makes it a lot less painful that the Ravager got shut down because, again, they're drawing from the same pool of resources.
Nicholas Davis does draw a card. Now he's got a Restoration Angel in hand. He's also got that Nahiri as well. And this is one of those moments where Nahiri does not get to kill an untapped artifact. It gets to kill a tapped artifact. I'm sure it wishes it could kill a Master of Ethereum right now.
Still a fine spot here for Davis. The Restoration Angel swallows up any of the flying attackers. And because of Restoration Angel, if he wants to, he can chump block the Master of Ethereum and reset something.
Yep.
So Davis's position here is pretty solid. And on top of that, if he gets to play Nahiri on a stable battlefield, you start plussing that with your Restoration Angel in play, find Quarter Calling or Kiki-Jiki. There's a route to a fairly easy kill here.
Raging Ravine is the land for the turn. Nicholas Davis will pass the turn back. We're going to head back over to Cody Kowalski. And Kowalski will draw. Didn't get a great look at it. But do remember that his Arcbound Ravager is being shut down right now by Phyrexian Revoker, naming that. So can't use any of its abilities, like sacrificing artifacts, to make it larger. He's also got that Birds of Paradise Noble Hierarch active, a Wall of Omens, and an Eternal Witness with the Restoration Angel in hand at the ready, with obviously quite a few good targets. For Cody Kowalski, 2 Vault Scourges, a Master of Ethereum that's rather large, an Ornithopter, a Signal Pest, 2 copies of Inkmoth Nexus, a Mox Opal, and that Arcbound Ravager that we mentioned earlier being shut down by Phyrexian Revoker.
Davis's position is by no means a lock, but he's in an enviable spot here. I think he's got a route to stabilize the board and start using Nahiri either to shut down whatever few remaining problematic cards Kowalski has, like Master of Ethereum, or start plussing and looking for the kill.
Well, enough is enough, says Cody Kowalski. It's time to get in there with everything. So he fires up the Inkmoth Nexus. He turns all of his creatures sideways. And now Nicholas Davis, much like the last game, has a little bit to think about in regards to the blocking.
Well, the issue here is he's got to do something with Restoration Angel either before or after combat. So he's got to decide, do I want to chump block the Master of Ethereum and then save it with the Restoration Angel, or do I want to get Restoration Angel onto the battlefield before block so I can swallow up one of the flyers? I prioritize just getting the Signal Pest off the battlefield, because then the Kowalski starts are pretty anemic, and you have Nahiri that can kill a tapped creature, so you can just get the Master of Ethereum off the battlefield.
I like that route. You're not facing lethal right now.
Right. So he's got a little bit of a cushion to play with here, but with only one flying creature that can swallow things up in the Restoration Angel, if I'm in Davis's spot, I prioritize stabilizing the air a little bit.
Now, there is always that fear that maybe that Revoker isn't there for long. You know, maybe a Galvanic Blast in Cody Kowalski's hand kills that Phyrexian Revoker. And then all of a sudden, Arcbound Ravager can really start to get to work. But for now, it looks like, you know, lining up blocks, trying to figure out exactly what he does want to do. One of the things that I like to do in situations like this is actually get a kind of a physical representation of what my blocks could be.
Yeah, I mean,
before declaring them.
Usually my process in spots like this is, what do my blocks look like if all I prioritize is stabilizing the board? What do my blocks look like if I only care about preserving my life total this turn? And that usually informs, you know, you get a picture of what things look like and can go from there.
Well, those are the final blocks there. So Birds of Paradise and Wall of Omens down. Restoration Angel eats the Vault Scourge. A little bit of life will be gained, damage will be dealt, all that jazz. Life totals will shake out here in just a moment. You see both players making sure they know exactly how much damage is being dealt and how the life totals will change accordingly. And then we'll head into Cody Kowalski's second main phase. See, even some infect damage was dealt this turn. Curiously, however, that other Inkmoth Nexus did not attack. So if I'm Nicholas, I'm a little afraid of something here.
Yep, could be some sort of, you know, stubborn denial. I think Galvanic Blast you would have just seen on the Restoration Angel before blocks.
Legacy Classic players, if you do not have an opponent across from you, please.
Looks like a red card was drawn. No, it's just a mountain. Okay.
Go to their seats.
For a moment there, I thought it was Mizium Mortars.
Which would be really good right now.
That would have been something. Here's Nahiri instead. Down to 2, Master of Ethereum is going to try to get killed. That'll work. Remember, Phyrexian Revoker is making life difficult for that Arcbound Ravager down there. And Cody Kowalski wants to take a look at the powerful Planeswalker that has been very dominant here this week in Indianapolis. Exiling target enchantment, tapped artifact, or tapped creature in this instance.
And with that, Legacy Classic players, welcome to round 6 of 8.
See if anything else comes from Davis's turn. You know, the weird thing is the entire time they were watching this game, and it feels like the entire time we were watching this match, it's all on Nicholas to just hang on and then find a quarter calling in combo. That feels like it's really what it's all about.
I think he's trying to see if there's basically a free attack available for him here. It's worth sniffing out. I think ultimately Davis wins this game via combo if he does win, and unlikely to be a damage race. But if you think there's a route for you to get a free attack in, you might as well take it.
If it's a guaranteed a free chip shot, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I would be willing to attack. I guess with the Nexus up, you can't even really attack with anything, because the Eternal Witness is more valuable as a blocker, and you can't let the Revoker trade.
Yeah.
So I think Davis ultimately comes to the right conclusion here and just hangs back.
Back to Kowalski will go. Pretty close one between these two. Keep in mind, look at the records: 10-2 and 1, 11-2. with 2 rounds left to play. If Cody Kowalski wins his match, he's basically locked for top 8.
Yep. Davis will most likely need a win next round if he's able to win this, but Kowalski should be in a position to draw if he can pull out this 3rd game.
He's in pretty decent shape this game. It's gotten much harder since he's lost his Master of Ethereum and that Arcbound Ravager being shut down.
The problem is that he probably has to invest at least 1 turn and 1 attack and lose some cards to get Nahiri off the battlefield, because he can't really let Nahiri hang around. Pluses and finds Quarter Calling, or it's another terminate effect. And, I don't know if Kowalski can afford, attack with all my flyers, Restoration Angel gets to eat something for free again, now your Nahiri's gone, and no damage is dealt. There's another creature in the graveyard now for the Scavenging Ooze, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, just a Vault Scourge and no attacks, and I don't really think he has very many good attacks here. So now we head back over to Nicholas Davis, who's just on the hunt for Quarter Calling or Kiki Jiki. Looks like Nahiri is going to go up. Davis will discard a Windswept Heath, draw a card. Looks like he just exchanged Windswept Heaths. Not all that exciting. Now here's the Kowalski Pride Mage. Nice insurance there.
Yes.
Just in case anything goes kind of haywire.
I mean, now if he wants to, I could see attacking with the Eternal Witness. You get a couple Exalted triggers, so there's no easy blocks here for Kowalski, and you probably have enough blockers on the way back to ensure against whatever.
I'm more comfortable attacking with Eternal Witness this turn than I was the last turn.
Yeah, I think it's moved in the right direction.
I think Nicholas Davis feels the same way, and he will send it in. It's a 4-3 with this attack because Noble Hierarch and Kowalski Pride Mage Exalted triggers. Kowalski, he's got a lot of life to work with. He'll take the 4, fall down to 21.
I think I may have preferred Scavenging Ooze as an attacker because I think Davis is likely to use his leftover mana just dumping into the Ooze anyway.
Okay.
So you just get a faster clock going, but not a huge deal.
I think that'll complete Nicholas's turn, so we're going to head back over to Kowalski in just a moment. Some decent back and forth between these two players. Both players have some very big draws available to them.
The problem here from Kowalski's side is last turn was kind of the last turn where he had a reasonable window to attack Nahiri down and get off the battlefield. Now that his loyalty's up to 4, it's becoming even harder and harder to justify an attack, especially now with Davis having a Kowalski Pride Mage.
And we've seen that so much this weekend.
So now Kowalski just has to play through Nahiri, which probably means sit on your hands the whole time and wait to be able to kill in 1 turn, and that's going to be hard to do with Davis improving his draw, and also just being 2 turns away from being able to ultimate get Kiki Jiki and end the game.
Yep. So perhaps Nahiri a nice addition to this deck.
I mean, it's definitely a deck that's in the market for looting, for more battlefield control, for more ways to combo out. It fills a lot of roles. And this deck's got a lot of mana and often just needs more powerful 4 and 5 mana plays. You get a lot of hands with mana that don't go anywhere. Nahiri cleans that up too.
I see some counters added, not to the Pride Mage, but to the Scavenging Ooze. There we go. And it should have 3 counters as it ate 3 creatures. Now Davis will draw. Will he ever find a Court of Calling? Well, here he was going to help him try. Windswept Heath to discard. Draw a card. Doesn't look like it just yet. And I can't imagine sideboard any out. I'll say that. So I think it's too powerful of a card, especially in this deck, to sideboard out. It looks like this time Scavenging Ooze is going to come over. So Nick and you are kind of on the same wavelength here. What you want to do to try to accomplish a W here?
Like I said, I would have preferred this line from last turn, but I don't think it's a huge deal either way.
It's an attack for 7 by Kowalski. Excuse me, it's attacked by 7 to Kowalski, so he's going to fall down to 14. Any follow-up to be had? Looks like yes. Looks like P and Kieran.
Yep.
All right, now things are getting a little tough.
Yeah, that's more defense in the air. There's more than enough blockers in play for Davis to be able to realistically handle any sort of cranial plating, or, if the Revoker dies and the Ravager is unlocked, I still don't think that gives Kowalski a path to attack.
Kowalski will draw. And now I'm just trying to think of what his best draws are. I mean, the first one I'm thinking of is just Whip Flare.
It's, I think it's Thought Cast into help.
Yeah.
Into a lot of help.
Okay. You know, it's not cranial plating. I can say that with quite a bit of confidence. And that's what he's drawn for the turn. Rarely is cranial plating a bad draw, but I think this is one instance where it actually is. So there's cranial plating.
And Kowalski has double black, so he can move it around in instant speed if he wants to.
Well, that's a positive. Ornithopter getting tough, wearing a hat. I don't think Nicholas Davis is too concerned about that right now. He'll just pass the turn back. And now we just kind of get to the stage where, you know, you've talked about it. Nahiri is threatening its ultimate, not this turn, but next. And maybe you find a quarter calling, maybe you don't on this turn.
Well, you just hang back on D if you want to.
Yeah.
Just got to defend Nahiri for one more turn. Tools appear to be there, especially now that P and Kira and Nalar have untapped. You can spend all of your mana sacrificing Thopters and chump blocking and such.
Yeah.
Should not be too hard to get to the finish line.
Another safe attack here from Scavenging Ooze with some exalted triggers. Who would have thought Nahiri would be such a great addition for this deck? Jeskai decks? Mardu decks? Sure. But for Kiki Court, not sure you want to play 4. But Nicholas Davis has 2, and I think 2 is a pretty good number.
Yeah, 2 seems solid.
And it is just worth noting again, and we saw this with Jim Davis earlier and Peter Ingram, and a bevy of other players playing Jeskai Control. Getting to the ultimate with this card is basically trivial.
Yeah, it goes
So easy.
It goes to 6 right away.
Yeah. A Birds of Paradise. And Davis can pass it back over to Kowalski with absolute confidence that he's going to get to combo out next turn. Blinkmoth Nexus to draw to go along with the Mox Opal. Not scared of that.
And Kowalski's going to make a good show over here and may move into combat and try to get something done. But the writing's on the wall. He knows it.
Cody wants to take a look at.
It's bad news.
Yeah, it's not. No, you don't want to read that.
Bad news.
You don't want to read the -8, Cody. It's not getting Emrakul. I think that's the only good news.
Emrakul, I think in this spot is probably less powerful than Kiki.
Yeah. I think you might actually somehow be right.
Kowalski's got a lot of crappy permanents to sacrifice.
That's the thing about Affinity, right? You don't ever want to get to the stage of the game like this.
Yeah, I mean, you know, you play with a lot of bad cards to make some very powerful cards very powerful, but then the game bogs down and you have a bunch of Ornithopters and Memnites in your deck.
Yeah. You have them in the opening stages of the game, great. You have them on turn 8, not so great. And it was even one of those games where drawing a cranial plating, maybe the best card in the deck, behind Mox Opal, was basically a blank draw. And you said he was going to make a show of it. That's exactly what's happening right here. The old Hail Mary. As all the creatures are going to come in, there will be a battle cry trigger there from the Signal Pest. So Vault Scourge will become a 2/1 with lifelink. Inkmoth Nexus will be a 2-power creature. The Ornithopter is pretty large because of cranial plating and the battle cry trigger. And then the other Vault Scourge will get a battle cry trigger.
So there's a Restoration Angel, 2 Thopters, and a Birds of Paradise able to block in the air, plus mana left over to activate P and Kieran Nalar several times, and a Kasali Pride Mage. So Davis has to really bungle this to die. That's my point.
Yeah.
He's got enough blockers to cover almost everything.
Oh, and it appears it would take a really large bungle now because the Inkmoth Nexus is at Nick. The rest are at Nahiri to try to slow down the old Planeswalker.
Right. Just don't let your Restoration Angel die, and don't let yourself die. And honestly, you can even let the Restoration Angel die probably, and it's still fine at the end of the day.
Yeah. I can appreciate just going through this and making sure you don't make a mistake.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, he should be playing around all the potential tricks. And, you know, he's seen Galvanic Blast and, you know, worth thinking about things. But it should not be too hard to not die here.
Got a Thopter token and jumping in front of a Vault Scourge. Maybe. It looks like one's going to jump in front of a Signal, but that's kind of a free block there. Restoration Angel jumping in front of a Vault Scourge. This Thopter token jumping in front of Vault Scourge. Going to let the Inkmoth Nexus go in unblocked.
Yeah, this looks good to me. Still with several shatters on board, ready to go in case something weird happens.
The last call for sign-up for the Legacy Challenge is the 3 p.m.
So those blocks are locked in.
If you would like to play the 3 p.m. Legacy Challenge,
A Blinkmoth Nexus activation on Inkmoth Nexus.
we are also taking
Okay, that resolves.
Yep.
and Modern Challenge. If you would like to play in our final
It's now a 3-2.
Modern Challenge of the day, our final challenge of the weekend. please
I think we're going to see
side events as
the parents throw a Thopter over that Inkmoth Nexus. Yep, that should clear that up. So down goes the Inkmoth. So that Vault Scourge was blocked. Now all the damage will be dealt. Bye-bye Vault Scourge. No damage dealt to Nicholas Davis. And unfortunately, as we work our way into turns, this is just how things go sometimes for Affinity when games go this late.
Yep. And now he doesn't even need to go get Kiki Jiki if he doesn't want to.
Oh, just make an attack.
Yeah.
Yeah. Heartbound Ravager ready to block now. Going to slide it away from the Springlet Drum. Oh, Path to Exile strategy. He had that in his hand just in case.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Another Terminate ready to go.
Gonna be tough to lose.
Kasali Primate still ready, just in case.
Kowalski, I think, going to take his last game action, which is search up a basic island off of the Path to Exile. But as these players play out the home stretch in the final turn of the match, it'll be Nicholas Davis who's going to win this match 2-1 in extra turns of this one. He's going to move on to 11-2-1 with Kiki Cord. And as we mentioned, 3 of these in today number 2 of competition. Not sure how many of them have Nahiri in the deck, but it looks like a good addition to me.
Yep. I know Jeff Hoagland's been advocating this sort of thing.
Absolutely has. As Cody Kowalski will extend the hand. Nicholas Davis, 2-1 with Kiki Cord over Affinity. Moving on to 11-2-1. Cody Kowalski will fall down to 11-3. However, Cody Kowalski can still make the top 8.
Yes.